Now, I love New York. I love it because it is, for a kid who grew up watching, 80s TV and 90s movies and so many things set in New York, it's an epicenter of culture, politics, business, all the rest of it, right? And in fact, I love New York so much that that's where I got married to my beautiful wife, Sian. We eloped. Mum still to this day very impressed to get the news one very late December night that we went to City Hall and we got married. So I don't quite have skin in the game, but I do have love for a city that is supposedly the world's greatest city. And on many fronts, I'd say it is. But it is, as you know, on its way to making a choice about its future. The Democrats had their primary last week to decide who would be their candidate. And the person who won is a 30-something-year-old socialist.
Meet Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani.
He beat Andrew Cuomo, who, of course, was the bloke who, I can't believe, even ran for New York mayor. He was the guy who, remember, put COVID-positive patients back into nursing homes, apparently 17,000 people dying as a result of. He thought a couple of years later he'd be able to win. He didn't. But this is the guy who came up through the middle and is a massive chance of winning. The reality is, though, there are lots of people who think there's a way to make sure they can guarantee he's not going to go there, right? And there's all different attacks that people have on him, from his views on the Middle East through to the label that is socialism.
He's a communist, and he's a pure communist. I think he admits it, but I can't imagine it. But let's say this. If he does get in, I'm going to be president, and he's going to have to do the right thing, or they're not getting any money.
He's anti-capitalism. He doesn't like our system of government. He wants to get rid of that. And let's have government-run grocery stores.
This communist from New York someday gets elected. I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic city. That's so bad for New York.
It's the biggest city in America, and you're going to run a communist out. Mm-hmm. I thought I was right when I said we'd hit rock bottom.
But I don't think any of those labels are going to be enough to defeat him. Now, I disagree with many of his policies. I disagree with the way he chooses to pay for his policies. But anyone who's been to New York knows that the rich bits are really rich and really beautiful, and the bits that aren't, well, pretty obviously is the majority of the people outside of the island of Manhattan. Remember, the 5 boroughs, they all get a chance to vote. And the message that he is sending, yes, is free stuff, free stuff, free stuff. But this is how it's being packaged. And no matter how much people push back against the consequences of free stuff, why wouldn't this guy end up winning an election with promises like this?
I'll make buses fast and free,
So I can just get where I'm going.
I'll make childcare available to all New Yorkers at no cost.
I want to raise my kid in New York.
And I'll freeze the rent for every single rent-stabilized tenant.
These Eric Adams rent hikes are killing us.
Also, plenty of people say that his attitudes towards Israel are disqualifying, and therefore he should not receive the support. A particular example of him very obviously not pulling his punches was when he was asked a question over and over again on NBC just this weekend, which was, how does he feel about the term globalising the Intifada? Put simply, killing Jews wherever they are in the world. Well, he was asked, and watch him not engage with a pretty obvious question that should kill off any politician in the United States, but it won't when it comes to this guy.
Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights.
Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C.
Dear God. No. The way that this guy will lose an election is his policies on law and order. This guy is defund the police 2.0, where you don't use the term defund the police, but it's the exact same policies that were being pushed to failure in city after city in the United States. Remember, a soft on crime approach of the previous mayor in New York City was one of the reasons why Bill de Blasio was essentially run out of town, couldn't get out of first gear as a presidential candidate, and has basically no political future in front of him because of the failure of law and order. Remember, things got so bad in New York that police were being murdered in the streets. And at the other level, up to $1,000 is how much people can steal from a shop before it ends up being a serious crime. Do people really want to go back to that? Again, as failed as the ideas are when it comes to socialism, as terrible as the ideas are when it comes to world events and his treatment of Jewish citizens in New York, every citizen that may well be conned by this bloke needs to pay attention to what he himself is saying about law and order in a city where it can get out of control very fast. And every time someone goes near promising this, from cutting the budget of the NYPD or trying to keep people away from jails even when they clearly commit crimes, you know what happens. So this is, if anyone wants to defeat this bloke, the only way to defeat this bloke. In fact, if I can quote from the New York Times, when he was being interviewed as a candidate, he wasn't hiding what his plan is here. In fact, if I can show you, Mr. Mamdani, a state assemblyman from Queens, would remove the NYPD, instead create a city agency called the Department of Community Safety that would focus on expanding violence interrupter programs and mental health teams that respond to 911 calls. So someone's attacking you, you call 911, you don't get a cop, you get somebody who's going to deal with a mental health issue. Quote, the police have a critical role to play, he said in an interview. Right now, we're relying on them to deal with the failures of our social safety net. This department will pioneer evidence-proven approaches that have been successful elsewhere in the country. Well, there are no examples of it elsewhere in the country. There are people who have these ideas before they defund the police, and it fails every single time. The term defund the police is political poison in the United States. But just by introducing the policy but not putting the title on top of it, somehow he thinks he'll be able to fool people with, yes, fabulously produced social media and also an attitude when it comes to dealing with the traditional media of not giving in. He is essentially using the Trump playbook. But this bloke put out a 117-page community safety policy. I can tell you there's more sections on it about hate crimes than there are about any of the serious things that will cause problems in the greatest city in the world, that being New York City. We continue here. Mr. Mamdani said he would also eliminate the police department's huge overtime budget. So the poor buggers who go towards 911 calls all day, every day, with the risk of dying, if they go longer than their prescribed time, you get paid overtime, but no more of that. He'll also get rid of a unit that's called the Strategic Response Unit. Put simply, he believes that what turns things violent is the policing, not the criminal. He would expand programs like the Behavioural Health Emergency Assistance Response Division, or BHERD, which sends teams of mental health professionals rather than police to scenes at certain emergencies. So let's be really clear here. This bloke also believes that he should close the biggest prison, Rikers, in New York. He believes that we should release more people from prison while they await trial, so somebody who may well end up being found guilty of a serious crime could walk the streets. He also believes that we should be diverting people from prosecution, meaning some things that clearly are a crime shouldn't be counted as a crime. So if this video makes it any way towards New York City, or anyone who has a chance to influence a vote in New York City, it might be great to have free stuff, but if the free stuff's going to get stolen or you're going to get assaulted while somebody steals the free stuff, then this is not the option you want. This would be a terrible fork in the road, but we'll all find out together whether it's going to happen. Of course, if you raise any of these criticisms, what does the left say?
There is a double standard that is being applied to him that is not being applied to other politicians, and it's for obvious reasons. Not just because of his politics on what has happened overseas in Gaza, but the way he has stood up and defended certain principles around free speech in this city, but also because of what his faith is, what his identity is. And those are central to him, and I think that's new to many people in this country, and we're seeing that being weaponized in a very ugly and vulgar way.
The only way this bloke will be defeated is by pointing out defund the police and his lack of action on law and order. New York has already made a part of this mistake before. May they not make it again.